welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk special edition of Elimination Offseason Reports. The San Jose Sharks eliminated from the playoffs quite a while ago. They never made the playoffs, that is. And we are going to break down everything that is San Jose Sharks season in 2020-2021 and what their offseason is going to look like. If you haven't listened to Columbus and Buffalo and Anaheim and everything else that's also coming in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever you listen, and let's dive into the San Jose Sharks. My co-host Justin Baker is here via Skype. Justin, let's get your initial thoughts on the San Jose Sharks regular season.
Yeah, whoa. I mean, there's some teams, right, we've seen at the bottom, expected to be at the bottom, but this is a team that I don't think people were expecting to make the playoffs, but I didn't think they could look any worse than they did last year, and they surprised me. They looked much worse than they did last year. So
yeah, they looked worse than like the Los Angeles Kings, which I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like the other team in California, the Anaheim Ducks, right, even though they finished towards the very bottom there, they had a few pieces that you could look at and you can be like, all right, cool. Like, there's potential here for this team, right? But maybe in the future. But again, when I look at San Jose, everything just looks horrible.
Yes, from the forward position, I mean, really, we're going to go ahead and give Evander Kane a nice little pass, even though he actually had a really good year, 49 points in 56 games. And that's in a year where he was experiencing all this bankruptcy and whatever else. Like, the guy was just going through so much personally. Scores 22 goals, has a great year, and really it's essentially all lost because the Sharks played so bad. The rest of the team, Logan Couture kind of looked like the second line center that we all know that he is, even though everyone wants to pump his tires that he's this fantastic first line center, and I don't see it. He really hasn't been in a while, and that was when the Sharks were really good. They had a ton of depth, and he was insulated. And now that he's not, and he's the guy, he's being exposed left and right. So you're right. There just isn't a whole lot to be super excited about, other than the fact that the people who can be really excited about what's happening with the Sharks, Erik Karlsson, who gets to go home with $11.5 million every year, Brent Burns with $8 million, and Vlasic with $7 million. And they are the old overpaid decor who was supposed to be the NHL's best. I think I remember like two years ago, before the regular season, saying, holy crap, this team is an unbelievable defense. And now you go, ooh, man, Erik Karlsson, I mean, is he even like an $8 million guy anymore? Like, would he get paid $8 million? I don't think he would. I mean, 22 points, 52 games, and he never really looked that comfortable. He hasn't looked that great in a San Jose Sharks uniform since he got there. I mean, this is just, it really hasn't worked out with that. And he's going to make $11.5 million for another 6 years or 7 years or whatever. Yeah, 6 years. Man, it's I feel bad for San Jose because you kind of just have to hope that they turn it around, or you're just going to be bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you talk about bad contracts, right? As a Detroit Red Wings fan, we've been through this for the last few years. We're kind of, we've been stuck with those Darren Helm, Abdelkader, Franz Nielsen contracts that have kind of, I don't want to see weight us down. But
but those aren't $11.5 million.
Right. And that's again, you're going to have these contracts that are going to hinder you from really doing anything. And even when you look up front, right? I mean, Logan Couture is on $8 million for another 5 or 6 seasons. Evander Kane, yes, he looked great, but the one asterisk to his season is the fact that he might actually have his contract terminated by the San Jose Sharks with this whole bankruptcy thing. So you might free up some money there, but assuming you don't, and maybe you get the Evander Kane of old, and not this season that you had that that good production offensively. You've got like 5 or 6 contracts here that are really going to keep you from doing anything over the next 3 to 4 years, because you just don't have any wiggle room, especially with next year a flat cap again. And who knows if how far the cap's going to go up the next couple seasons after that. I know we got the new TV deal with ESPN, but still, you can't predict the future. I mean,
let's say 85 million.
Sure.
It's not going to go up 10 million.
Exactly. So you're not going to have that room to go out and sign a big name guy here anytime soon.
No, so unless of course if you can get Logan Couture or something to waive his deal, or that's really what you're looking at is to trade somebody, and to maybe you have to hold on to a couple $1,000,000 on the deal. I don't think you could find anybody who'd want Erik Karlsson he just has a straight no move clause, so he can just say no. So can Vlasic. I guess Brent Burns, he can submit a 3-team trade list, and that's it. So there's 3 teams that Brent Burns could go to, and he can make it basically impossible for them to trade him to. He signed for another 4 years, $8 million. He's 36 years old. He's going to be 40 years old when that deal ends. And we all knew that was the risk of this signing, was that he could be, he'll be much older when the deal is at its end, but we were expecting the cap to go up every year, and that it wouldn't be as big of a percentage in the cap, and that by the time you get to those last couple years, potentially he retires, and they're able to bury it, because he did sign it obviously before he turned 35, so they're able to not have it count against the cap. Like, there's all sorts of ways around some potential bad side effects, but at the same time, now Brent Burns just looks like he's going to kind of just be there, and while Brent Burns is still putting up decent points, his defensive game isn't what it once was either. So not that it was anything super special, but ultimately, when it comes down to the San Jose Sharks, is it not goaltending? It's the thing. It's been so bad. There's only one team that allowed more goals than the San Jose Sharks, and that is the Philadelphia Flyers.
It's pretty bad in that there. Obviously they tried to bring in Devin Dubnyk, who was a couple years removed from, looking like a number 1 starter in Minnesota, but no goaltender on this team finished with at least a .900 save percentage. Everybody had over a 3.17 goals against average, and like you talked about, second worst goals against in the league, and so you have to stop the bleeding somehow, because again, you have some forwards that are halfway decent that can put up a little production, but you're not going to outscore guys with that forward group. So, this isn't like a Toronto team where they have just elite talent up front to go out and win those 7 to 5 games if you need to. But they have to find somebody, and that's going to be really tough, because you have a defense too in front of you that isn't all there defensively, right? Obviously we know Erik Karlsson, if he plays in his prime, he can control the puck well enough so you don't have to worry about defense, but he's not there anymore, in my opinion. Who knows if he'll get back to that at some point or anything close to it. Like you talk about, Brent Burns, nowhere near what he should be as far as a defensive player to be worth $8 million in my mind. And the production is okay, but again, not worth the money. And then there's Vlasic, again, who is a guy you expected to be that shutdown defensive guy, but he can't do it alone. And so when you don't have supporting cast and you don't have goaltending to bail you out every once in a while, it's sink or swim, really, and this team's sinking.
Right. That is very true. There are some guys that they could bring in, that would help them to score. There's Mike Hoffman is a guy that I think could fit there. There really just isn't a whole. This year's free agent crop is not that spectacular, right? Like, it's just not. It's nothing where you're like, oh yeah, if they could just sign this guy, it could all turn around. No, it's a pretty weak class. The highest goal scorers in this class, Mike Hoffman and Alexander Venberg, with 17 goals in 56 games. So, and Tyson Barrie is the top point producer out of all the UFAs coming into this year with 48 points. I'm sure Tyson Barrie will get paid, but it's not going to be by the San Jose Sharks. Next best is David Krejci with 44 points. So the depth here is pretty scarce. So this really isn't the year to go to that free agent pool, sign someone to a stupid deal, and hurt yourself even more. It's going to be interesting to see what the Sharks can do. Doug Wilson has been their general manager for a long time now. He's been their GM since 2003. Yes, 2003. So there's not a whole lot that this guy hasn't seen or done. But I think this might be his biggest challenge because, for a while there was a lot of hope for the San Jose Sharks. They were a Stanley Cup contender. Now they're just not. And they were the first team to toss around the term retooling. He was the first guy to say, well, we're not rebuilding, we're just retooling. Remember, they finished the year they drafted Tomas Hertl. I think they drafted him like 6th overall or something like that. And it was that year was kind of an unexpected. He was 17th overall. What year am I thinking? The Sharks drafted really early in a draft. We can find that, but he was the first one to toss around that idea of, it was 2003 they drafted 6th. All right. Well, anyways, 8th, 2015 they drafted 9th. It was Timo Meier. 2007 when they were 9th, that's when they drafted Logan Couture. So, anyways, they missed the playoffs. And 15, I think, is what I'm thinking when they missed the playoffs. And they said, we're retooling. We're just retooling. Everyone's like, well, that seems like just the same word as a rebuild, but you're just using a different word for it. But he was right. I mean, they were able to turn around, make the playoffs the next year, and quickly became a Stanley Cup contender again. And obviously they go to the Stanley Cup finals and they lose to the Pittsburgh Penguins shortly after that. And now this team, just the position they're in, it's almost like they have to rebuild. Like, there's not a whole lot here that they can actually use in 4-5 years from now, 3 years, to go and win a cup. And they're not going to win the cup with this group. No way.
Yeah, I don't see them getting anywhere close with this group. And even if they get these guys playing at their best, Logan Couture at his best is still maybe close to a number one center, but he's
like Ryan Johansson.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's a good way to put it, right?
Like, he's a number one, but he's like the 28th best number one.
Right. Yeah, and so you're not going to get too far, and obviously the deficiencies in goal. I mean, when you talk about potential guys to come in and maybe fill the net, and I mean, look, this offseason there's a couple names in here, but nobody that I really see being a true number one. The only guy who could potentially surprise people and be a true number one is Chris Dreger, but I don't see him wanting to go to San Jose. I think he would rather try to find a team that's a little bit closer to contention. That maybe he can play a 1A, 1B type situation. I mean, heck, like a Dallas situation, right? They've got Khudobin and Bishop there, and that kind of situation I think he would probably want to get into. But again, who knows, right? This team is far away from being a contender again. Like you said, I think it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of pain for a few years, because you've got to start building the pool back up, right? You've got to get these prospects. You've got to start drafting well, and maybe it's time for Doug Wilson to say see you later and let someone else come in and go through the painful next 3-4 years to build up the cupboards again and get some assets and get what you can and see if they can't turn this thing around and half a decade.
Yeah. I don't think that he'll get fired anytime soon. But
no, not at all.
Chris Driedger he's an interesting thought. I think there's one goalie that I think could do okay in San Jose, and that's Peter Mrazek. I don't think he's going back to Carolina. I think Nedeljkovic is now the goalie of the future for Carolina, and Peter Mrazek's going to be looking for a new home. He wouldn't cost a whole lot. He played well in limited time this year after he was hurt, but he could be a solution for the San Jose Sharks. I mean, they just need to get if they were to get good goaltending, suddenly this team is actually maybe competing for a playoff spot in what is typically the Pacific Division. The weird division they're in right now is kind of strange.
I don't disagree with you. I think, again, I personally think Mrazek is going to stay in Carolina because, again, it won't cost them that much to keep him around, and when he's healthy, he's very good for Carolina, and that's a good combo to have a veteran guy like Mrazek and Nedeljkovic there would be a great 1-2 punch. However, assuming that Mrazek re-signs there, because you talk about that Pacific Division being so weak with Anaheim, LA, Calgary, looking so right now, in Vancouver, there could be a potential you get some really good goaltending. They could potentially be a playoff team, but obviously I see them more of a team that would be better off just rebuilding. But what about a name like Freddie Anderson?
Going back to the West Coast.
Yeah, I don't see him going back to Toronto next season. No. I don't think he gets re-signed. So, this is, Jack Campbell's net next year. And so maybe, maybe Freddie Anderson is looking for an opportunity to start. And maybe if he takes a, 1 or 2 year deal at $3 to $4 million, because he, to me, is a guy who in his past has seen a lot of shots, right, playing in Toronto. So he's used to that heavy workload. And so maybe, going back to San Jose, you think, okay, great. I'm probably going to, experience more of that, and I'm familiar with it. I can handle it, and maybe that's the mindset with the Sharks on that one.
Yeah. There's like a David Rittich too. San Jose could do, they could overhaul things. I don't know what they do with Martin Jones, other than,
you can't do anything with him really. Gosh, nobody's going to take that contract, and you can't buy him out right now. So who knows?
Well, you could buy him out.
You technically could, but I don't think I would, just because of the extended.
Yeah, they're already bad. There's no point in.
Yeah.
But you could bury him in the minors, and then you get about $1 million back, sure. and then you can kind of see what you got. They have some options. There's some teams out there who might take him if you were willing to give them a second round pick potentially. Might have to do a first round pick though for him. That's how bad he's been. I doubt that the Kraken take him in the draft, which with so many other goaltenders available. My guess is that. This is total side note, but is there any doubt that either that like Robin Lehner is going to play for the Seattle Kraken, right? Like. I think he is going to. Or is Vegas going to put Marc-Andre Fleury up as the goalie that they don't protect?
Well,
after what he's doing right now, how can you not protect him?
Well, fortunately for Vegas, they don't have to worry about protecting anybody.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yep.
But. There's still that scenario, though, if you're Vegas, right? You could potentially look to move Marc-Andre Fleury and say, hey, do you want to go to Seattle?
You can't. You can't. He's been so good. He's been so good. I agree with
you. He's been great. And I think Robin Lehner's been great for them, too. But, do you want to pay, your goalies $12, $13 million back there? So that's a question, I guess, maybe, Vegas can ponder and, think about it. But the nice thing is they don't have to, right? So they can continue to roll Fleury and Lehner, and they'll be totally happy with that. They'll get 2 great goaltenders.
Sure. Yes. Sorry. Back to the San Jose Sharks. From a forward standpoint, anyone that you think this team, like, is there a move for this team to make? I guess we need to go right to where you think this team is in terms of their viability of, are they a playoff team? Are they rebuilders? Where do you have them slotted? Because that really shapes the conversation.
Yeah, for me, I think the smartest thing for this team to do is to consider a full rebuild. And I think that's going to be 5-6 years of pain because of these contracts. But I think you have to just trade what you can, start acquiring prospects and picks, and just work at it slowly over the next, like I said, 5 years. And, hope by then, some of these first round draft picks, turn into decent players up front for you. And then, maybe by then you can shed a contract or two and get it off the books and start all over again and start that process of becoming a contender. Because if not, I think the other option is you try to acquire a goaltender, and you try to acquire maybe a big name forward up front via trade, whatever. And then try to just get in, right? Just get in, because you got better guys who, hey, maybe Carlson turns it on in the playoffs, Byrne turns it on in the playoffs, and now you've got, the potential to go a round or two. But the smartest thing, in my opinion, is just, trade what you can and start a rebuild here.
That's never going to happen.
No, not going to happen. Absolutely not. And I think Doug Wilson won't do it right now.
No, well, I mean, if you're saying, it's going to be a 5-year process, well, 5 years is a long time. Think about where you were 5 years ago.
No, absolutely. And
that's a long time to bank on when you already have Erik Karlsson, a 30-year-old Erik Karlsson. It feels like he should be able to figure something out. Like,
yes,
let's get him figuring out. Let's get Brent Burns playing halfway decent. Marc-Edouard Vlasic is still a good defenseman. He's not a $7 million defenseman, but I mean, he never put up big points. I mean, the most points he ever put up was 39 points. And in general, he's like a 30-point guy. And this year, he really kind of fell off, but so did the entire San Jose Sharks team.
Oh, absolutely. And when he was with Canada, I mean, Vlasic, again, in the Olympics, he was paired with Drew Doughty because they knew he was that shutdown defenseman,
sure.
And that's what he's supposed to be.
Sure. I think it's up front. Like, we can talk all we want about the defensive core and being overpaid, but when it all comes down to it, I mean, your top 6 forwards are really top, like, they're bottom top 6 forwards. You got to bring somebody in, and I got to think that at some point this team is going to be able to move somebody. Like, there's going to be some kind of shakeup. Maybe it is Evander Kane. To me, Evander Kane is like the easiest one to deal. Let's assume that his deal doesn't get terminated. I think that you could get the most for Evander Kane. Granted, he's doing the most, so you also might not want to deal him that way. But you do need to shake things up here, because it just seems like more of the same. Plus, I mean, when you look at, all you have to do is just look at Cap Friendly and look down their roster, and you see so many players who are making near or at the league minimum. And it's because obviously they have so many guys signed to such big deals, and they are not really hitting on a lot of these guys who are, the 24, 28-year-olds who are making league minimum. It's not working out. There needs to be a better structure of salary there, and so hopefully they can sign somebody, bring people in, make some moves, and they might need to use their draft picks in order to convince teams to take some players from them. The good thing for San Jose over, say, a team like Columbus is that people want to live in San Jose. Like, people want to go there. It's expensive to live there, so I feel for even though $700,000 is a lot of money, when you consider how much it costs to live in San Jose, it's like, it's not that much money when all is said and done. I mean, it's like making, maybe $200,000 somewhere else, which is still a lot of money, but compared to what some of these guys are, the way some of these guys are living, it'd be a little different. But I think this team is just going to need to make moves. Like, we haven't really seen them do a whole lot in terms of shaking this team up. And I think that's where they've got to go. I mean, we're not seeing anything, and all the moves that they've made the last few years are dink and dunk kind of moves where they're really not making huge differences. And that's what needs to happen. This team needs to be shook up.
Yeah. To me, though, Evander Kane, he could definitely get you a good return, but I think teams are going to be scared off because of the whole bankruptcy issue he's got going on. So,
once he figures it out, though, it'll be
sure,
fine.
Absolutely. Once he figures it out, yes, you could move. But I think a guy easier to move right now in his prime, with 1 year left on his deal, and that's Tomas Hertl. To me, I think this guy is a legit number 2 center, potential top-line winger. Right now, he's playing the number 1 center spot for San Jose, but I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. He's only 27, and at $5 million for a guy that put up 43 points in 50 games this year, and is only a couple years removed from a 74-point season, 35 goals. I mean, you could look at him and say, okay, as a team outside of San Jose, you could say, okay, this is a guy who we think can get back to that production, right? That 70-point production, 35. We would be willing to give up a first-round pick, right? Or, who knows? Maybe they make, send over a couple good prospects. But, if you're San Jose, I think this is the guy to look at to move, because I don't think, again, he's a UFA after next season. He's not going to re-sign there, I don't think, unless they just completely overpay for him. And so, move him now, get a good asset, a good return for him, and, help that rebuild, go even quicker.
Yep. You're right. He is the one guy that you could probably get a solid return for. And I think he's in this position where he's a very good player. I mean, 43 points in 50 games, he's great. But I don't think that his career trajectory, is he a couple of years ago, 18-19, he had 74 points. He scored 35 goals. But I think that was the peak of what he's able to do. And I doubt we see too many years like that out of him again.
No, I agree. I think he's probably more a 60-point guy, 25 goals, and that's probably what you're going to get, as far as, that top-end ability out of him for, maybe the next 3 to 4 years.
Right. And I think for San Jose, if you can, he's still at the top, you're still going to get full value for Tomas Hertl, pretty good value for him. Whereas maybe he doesn't come back. I think you're right. He's the guy you have to move and look to move him in the off season instead of waiting till the deadline, because I think you'll get much more for him if you move him, let's say, at the draft. You'll have more options. He has a 3-team trade list, but I gotta think that if Tomas Hertl was presented with a pretty decent team to go play for, that he would say, okay. The last 2 years have sucked in San Jose. So I'm sure that he wouldn't be opposed to going. And even if it wasn't the most desirable city, if it's a team that is in a position to win, I think he'd likely say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if he got the opportunity to say, oh, man, just looking at some teams here, I mean, you could say, let's take Philadelphia or the New York Rangers.
That's funny. I was just going to say the Philadelphia Flyers would be a good fit for him.
Yeah, I think, again, either one of these teams could use another, top 2 centerman. And so you get that opportunity to go in there and, use your offensive abilities and playmaking. And you could, again, Philly's got some other problems they need to work out on the back end and in goal. But, again, even the New York Rangers, for example, I know they would like somebody to be a number 1 and put Zibanejad as a number 2. But still, if you have a 1-2 punch of Hertl and Zibanejad, that's pretty good in my book. So, you could really succeed there, and he would definitely have good players on his wings in either one of those places.
Yeah, the Rangers could definitely afford it too. I mean, and if you're San Jose, are you first thing, if you're the Rangers, are you willing to trade a first round pick for Tomas Hertl? Because that's probably what it'll take, is a first round pick. And the Rangers' first round pick, though, is going to be high enough to where, I think you could probably just do straight, like a first round pick for Tomas Hertl, because it's going to be it's going to be like a relatively close to a top 10 pick, 12 or something like that.
Yeah, you would think so. But again, what if they make that move before the draft lottery and it ends up, I'm sure, the Rangers obviously wouldn't trade him. They would protect that pick, but
I guess it's going to be I lied. It's going to be 16th. That's where it'll be.
Well, still, even if you think about it, even if, because they do have a small percentage, moving up. Say they even move up to, number 9 or 10, right?
Sure.
If you're willing to deal the number 9 or 10 pick for a guy like Tomas Hertl.
If I'm San Jose, I definitely would do it. If you think
absolutely.
that there's a player in and around that spot that you want, that kind of sparks your rebuild there. And maybe it's a retooling, and the rebuild is more like, hey, we're going to take a couple of years and we're going to have some down years, but we're going to use those years to acquire long-term talent, and then maybe you're in a better position. So, the other thing is Hertl. Let's say Hertl next year. Let's say he plays. We'll just assume. Let's say he plays for San Jose all next year. He doesn't get dealt, and they hang on to him in hopes that they can make the playoffs. And Tomas Hertl goes in an 82 game season. Let's say he has another big year and he gets 70 points. Well, are you prepared to sign Tomas Hertl to $9 million a year, $8 million a year?
Right.
I don't think that the Sharks. I suppose the Sharks could do it, but that's going to be a pretty big stretch based off what they already have signed. That's going to be a big stretch.
Yeah, and the nice thing, when I looked at this draft too, there's a lot of good goaltending prospects at the top of the draft or the middle of the first round. So you could go out and move Hertl and potentially get your future starter there. And so, when I think about moving him, that's a deal I'm willing to do if I know I can grab maybe one of these top goaltending prospects.
Yeah, the problem with goaltending prospects, they take 5 years to even be good most of the time. You get a couple guys who can come in when they're 21, 22, but that's very
look at
rare.
Spencer Knight, right? He went early second or first round, to the Florida Panthers last year, and look how he's doing, man. He got a few starts, and he looks like he's going to be their next big goaltender. So, maybe strike it and get it lucky.
He got 4 starts. And he played really well. But it's also rare. Like Spencer Knight, he was the guy in that draft, and that was about it. It's just so hard. It's difficult. I understand though. If you can hit on a goalie in the first round, it's so worth it. So worth it. But then you have someone like Jack Campbell, who was taken in the first round, with very good goalie now, but it took him like 8 years to become a starter in the NHL. I
think he was picked like 26th overall by Dallas, and it took him quite a while. You're more than right about that. Sometimes you can hit on these guys and they'll start, after a couple of years, and other times you really got to wait on them.
Yeah, of course you've got the Carey Prices and the Marc-Andre Fleury. There are goalies who have been fantastic. There's no doubt about that, but it is rare that a top goalie is goalie's taken in the first round and things go really well. Then you've got your Rick DiPietros who's supposed to be great, and they just don't end up being that at all. It's tough. I guess Ilya Samsonov, he was a first round pick too, and Vasilevsky was. Jack Campbell went 11th overall in 2010.
11th, okay.
But then you've got like a Chet Pickard who went 18th overall 2008. Carey Price. Al Montoya, 6th overall 2004. it does not always work out. Pascal Leclerc, 8th overall in 2001. Obviously, Rick DiPietro, 1st overall, which he had a decent start to his career, but that obviously all fell apart.
Yeah, I think once you sign that 15-year
deal, yeah, that was a good time. Good for him. I think he's still getting paid by the New York Islanders.
Cashing. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to look that right now.
He will be getting paid for a while. He gets paid until actually I think that yes, he'll make $1.5 million until 2029.
Must be nice.
So we're gonna have to be continuing our show for a long time before we hit the end of his contract. Yowzas. Actually, this season would have been the year that his contract ended if he hadn't have gotten bought out. This season he would have been a UFA at the end of the year.
It's true.
and he just turned 40 years old.
Can you imagine?
Or he'll turn 40 in September. So, yeah, we'll have to do a show of like the worst contracts in the history of the NHL. I think we need to do that.
That's
this
a top
offseason.
10 right there.
A top 10 worst contracts ever. That would be really, really fun. Let's do it. But we'll close the book here on the San Jose Sharks, since we've gotten a little sidetracked here and there. But any final thoughts on the Sharks?
Boy, they're in a crossroads. That's all I'm going to say, because they have to either commit to a rebuild or they have to try to just get in the dance and hope for the best.
All right, there you have it. San Jose Sharks. We'll be back with a couple of more teams in the next week. And until then, find us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. Enjoy playoff hockey. Justin, I'll talk to you soon. And we'll talk to you guys soon as well.